Hi, criminal evidence class. I was gonna type up an announcement and send you about our homework and discussion board, and I thought I would do a video instead because this chapter is kind of confusing. I think there's a lot to it. So first thing I wanted to talk about is Frye versus Daubert. It's a little confusing, and I'm gonna start with the discussion board question. I wasn't trying to trick you, but yet it's one of those things that in order to have an opinion, you have to understand what you're dealing with. So Frye versus Daubert. So I'm just looking at my notes so I don't miss anything. So Frye versus the United States was a court case, and then Daubert versus Merrill Dow was also a court case. And Daubert basically replaced Frye. They're both kind of interchangeable. Each state in the United States follows their own rules when it comes to Frye or Daubert. So when you hear Frye versus Daubert, it's interchangeable, but it just has to do with the federal or the state level. So what does it mean? It means that a judge is able to rule on scientifically valid techniques, and in order for a judge to determine what can be admitted in court, he or she is looking at, was this technique subject to peer review? Has it been published? Is there a potential error rate for it? Is there standards controlling its operation? Is it accepted within the relevant scientific community? And so a judge does not need to have personal knowledge on a scientific technique, nor does a judge need to have a science background. The judge is looking at what has happened with this technique. I'll give you an example. Casey Anthony. So she was acquitted for murdering her daughter, but there was I don't know if you guys watched that case, it was several years ago, but there was some evidence that tried to be introduced at the trial that had to do with a smell test of a decomposed body. Something to do with being able to tell if a decomposed body was at a location based on the air particles. So that was attempted to be introduced by the prosecution because there was somebody that said, oh, you could tell that Casey Anthony's little girl was in the trunk of her car because the air particles had whatever it was. So the judge didn't allow it because the judge said, wait a second, this hasn't been peer reviewed. It hasn't been published. It hasn't been tested. That's what I'm talking about. That's what a judge does to determine what's admitted. So that may have changed some of your guys' opinion because it really doesn't have to do with whether the judge, has any knowledge in it or not. It's looking at the history and the techniques that's being introduced for court. So that's Daubert Frye. Now, also the judge has to determine who is an expert. So that was our homework question. So how is an expert determined? Well, and that is by the judge. So first of all, the judge has to decide, hey, we need an expert on this topic so the jury understands this topic better. So that first has to happen. And then the judge has to decide, is this person who's testifying, do they qualify as an expert? And that can vary from really here in California, from county to county, how it's determined. I have testified as a courtroom expert on bloodstain pattern analysis in San Diego, Riverside, and Los Angeles County. I've worked San Bernardino case, and I'm currently working a Santa Barbara case, but I haven't testified in those courts yet. But in both Riverside and in San Diego, it was during the murder trial that the judge voir dired me, asked me questions. The prosecution and the defense went back and forth, especially in San Diego. That was my first time testifying as an expert. And there was some back and forth on determining, am I an expert? And the judge declared right there in court, yes, that I would qualify, and he allowed me to give my opinion on bloodstain pattern analysis. Now in Los Angeles, it was really very different. I had to submit all of my qualifications, education, training, and stuff to a committee, and there's a judge that sits on the committee. So before I even walked into the courtroom, I had to be pre-approved by the judge. Now that was to work a public defender case. So it kind of is really weird, but ultimately a judge decides if someone can testify in court, and each superior court, it can vary. Now, since I've testified in San Diego, I've testified in Los Angeles a lot, and I've testified in Riverside once. Since I've testified a lot already, most of the time a judge is just like, oh, you've testified, okay, you're good. And so it's not as much. But I just wanted you to be aware of that. And honestly, I think it's varied so much in Southern California. It's been an eye-opener for me how much it's varied, that I bet it probably varies a lot across the states as well. So that's just a recap. Anyway, it's kind of a lot, but hopefully you grab some information from it. And I think I will send you an announcement with a link, or actually you can even go to our, I think I have it on our Canvas page, the International Association for Identification. This is for forensics professionals only. They do certifications, certifying practitioners in forensics in their discipline. And one area to become an expert is to become certified in your discipline, where you have to take a really long test and blah, blah, blah. That does help a lot too. So I've been certified, and then you have to recertify and stuff. But anyway, I'll just probably, if you're interested in that, you can let me know and I'll send it to you. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I am Irish, part Irish, but I'm not wearing green. I really should, I guess. But every Friday, I wear my Remember Everyone Deployed. My son is stationed in Okinawa, so I like for everybody to remember that we have a lot of military deployed all throughout the world. So my husband and I wear our red Remember Everyone Deployed Friday shirt. Instead of green, I'm wearing red. Be safe, and I hope you have a great weekend. Bye.